First area of business is invocation, and I don't believe Pastor John McGee is here. In his absence, our Councilman Jim Campbell will join us. Please stand and join us for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead.
Heavenly Father, Father God, Lord, we come before you tonight so grateful for this marvelous place that you provided for us to live. We thank you for everything about this place, Lord. We thank you for the citizens. Thank you for the streets. We thank you for the places of business. We thank you for the people who have run for election to do your will in the city council. We ask that all of us keep our hearts and our minds open tonight to do what's best for all of the city. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item number one is approval of the agenda. Councilman Servadius.
I move to, I'll pause. I'll defer to Councilmember Heisen actually now that I realize I'm supposed to read a proclamation we need to add.
Yes, Councilperson Heisen, sorry.
I'll answer Councilman, whatever. I move to add a proclamation in honor of National Bike Month to today's agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion to add a proclamation for National Bike, did you say month? National Bike Day?
It's, I guess it's, I thought it was month. It is day, Bike to School Day.
Okay, motion second.
Second.
Motion in a couple seconds, I think. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we've got an addition to our agenda under proclamations. We will have 3 this evening. Any other changes? Yes, Councilman Servadius.
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion to approve the agenda
Second.
as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilperson Heisen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thanks,
And our
guys.
first proclamation of the evening, thank you, Councilman Campbell, for filling in for us there, and please take the proclamation in honor of National Day of Prayer. Anytime.
Thank you. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas on April 17, 1952, the Congress of the United States approved a joint resolution to provide for setting aside an appropriate day when all citizens could unite in prayer. And the history of our nation is permanently marked with the role that prayer has played in the lives of individuals and a great nation. And historically, our greatest leaders have prayed for comfort in time of grief, for understanding in time of anger, and for protection in time of uncertainty. And the virtues of prayer reflect a common bond, hopes and aspirations, sorrows and fears, remorse and renewed resolve, thanks and joyful praise. Now, therefore, I, Bob Severns, Mayor, and council members of the City of Oak Harbor, do hereby proclaim May 5, 2016 as National Day of Prayer in the City of Oak Harbor, in keeping with the wishes of the Congress of the United States, and urge all citizens to join in the special observation. Signed, Bob Severns.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
And we have our second proclamation for the evening is in recognition of National Nurses Week. Councilor Heisen.
Thank you. Do we have anyone here to accept
I
this?
don't believe so.
Or we'll pass it on later? Okay. Whereas the nearly 2.9 million registered nurses in the United States comprise our nation's largest healthcare profession, and the depth and breadth of the registered nursing profession meets the different and emerging healthcare needs of the American population in a wide range of settings. And the American Nurses Association, as the voice for the registered nurses of this country, is working to chart a new course for a healthy nation that relies on increasing delivery of primary and preventive health care. And a renewed emphasis on primary and preventive health care will require a better utilization of all of our nation's registered nursing resources. And professional nursing has been demonstrated to be an indispensable component in the safety and quality of care of hospitalized patients, and that more qualified registered nurses will be needed in the future to meet increasingly complex needs of the healthcare consumers in our community. Now, therefore, we, Bob Severns, Mayor, and the council members of the City of Oak Harbor, along with the American Nurses Association, Naval Hospital Oak Harbor, and Naval Hospital Oak Harbor Nurses Association, in celebration of the ways in which registered nurses strive to provide safe and high-quality patient care and to map out a way to improve our healthcare system, do hereby proclaim the week of May 6th through the 12th, 2016, as National Nurses Week. Ethical practice and quality care. We ask that all residents of this community join in honoring the registered nurses who care for all of us. That the residents of Oak Harbor celebrate the accomplishments and the efforts of our registered nurses to improve our healthcare system and show our appreciation for our nation's nurses, not just this week, but at every opportunity throughout the year. Signed and sealed this third day of May 2016, Bob Severns, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Eisen. And Councilor Servadius.
Brandon, come on up. Very happy to present this proclamation in honor of National Bike to School today. We have Matt Plush and Brandon, I don't know your last name, but Nelson. Brandon Nelson. You're not related to the new music teacher, are you? Slight semblance there. All right, City of Oak Harbor proclamation. Whereas a lack of physical activity plays a leading role in rising rates of obesity, diabetes, and other health problems among children, and being able to bicycle or walk to school offers an opportunity to build activity into daily routine. And whereas driving students to school by private vehicle contributes to traffic congestion and air pollution. And whereas an important role for parents and caregivers is to encourage children to be aware of the challenges and dangers that they face on their trip to school each day, and the health and environmental risks related to physical inactivity and air pollution. And whereas community leaders and parents can determine the bikeability of their community and identify any potential challenges to safe bicycling using a bikeability checklist. And whereas community members and leaders should make a plan to make immediate changes to enable children to safely bicycle and walk in our communities, and develop a list of suggestions for improvements that can be executed over time. And whereas children, parents, and community leaders around the country are joining together to evaluate bicycling and walking conditions in their community. Now, therefore, we, Bob Severns, Mayor, and the council members of the City of Oak Harbor do hereby proclaim May 4th, 2016 as National Bike to School Day. That's tomorrow. In Oak Harbor, Washington, and encourage everyone to consider the safety and health of children today and every day. Signed and sealed on this third day of May 2016. Bob Severns, Mayor. Means my kids will be telling me tonight we have to get the bikes out. Do you like to say anything on behalf of that, or? My pleasure to present.
I'd like to thank you, Mayor Severns, and council for recognizing Bike to School Day. It's Bike to School, or it's Bike Month, so there's lots of activities going on for bicyclists this month. So check out the Whidbey Island Bicycle Club's website, or stop by Skagit Cycle, and Brad knows everything about cycling on the island. So hope to see you out there on your road bikes or mountain bikes or whatever transportation you want to use to get your kids to school tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt.
Brad.
And Brandon. Okay, we're moving along to item number 3 at this time, citizen comment period. Citizens may comment on subjects of interest not listed on the agenda or items listed on the consent agenda. To ensure comments are recorded properly, state your name clearly into the microphone. Please limit comments to 3 minutes to ensure all citizens have sufficient time. Are there any citizen comments? Matt, come back up.
Matt Plush, would be on Bicycle Club's president. Just a follow-up on I know it's December cyclocross race we do, but we received word last month that we will be holding a state championship for the cyclocross race. So that should bring a lot of cyclists to the island that weekend of December 10th and 11th. So we'll be bringing in forms and stuff, and we'll have 2 days of racing. So start getting in shape for cyclocross, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Pledge. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Citizen comment period. Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. And if there are no objections to the consent agenda, we'll just adopt it as it is. Okay? Item number 5. 5A, Clean Water Facility Project Update. I see our engineer Joe Stoll coming.
Mayor, council members, thank you for having me. Sorry, that kind of caught me off guard. I'm used to Doug saying a few things, and, well, Doug's not here today, and so made the mad dash out. So I got a relatively brief update for you on the clean water facility. Here's another video. This is a month's worth, so you'll see a little overlap from the last meeting, but looks like a bunch of busy bees working, and it's pretty cool. You can see these are installing the tiebacks as they go around. And after they go around, you can see that they'll start excavating right behind them, so they can get down to the lower level. And this machine hanging out right here was installing some test piles to see, to validate that the design that we've proposed will work. So that's relatively brief, but it's kind of fun to see it happen, and I'll try to do that as we move forward. So last 2 weeks, GMP4, which is the deep excavation, clearly they continue to install tiebacks, and they've excavated where the membrane sump area is going to go, so it's a little bit deeper in that one section in the north west corner. So the foundation, now that's driving the sheet piles. Oh, excuse me. I'm out of sorts today. That is for the concrete work. It was approved by council on April 5th. I got this mixed up with GMP 6. And they've installed several test piles, submitted revised micropile design to the building department. I got those goofed up somehow. Sorry about that. So in the next 6 weeks, GMP5 will finish the tiebacks. As a matter of fact, it looks like as early as next week we'll have those finished. They'll continue on the excavation and start preparing for the tower crane. And the tower crane shows up at the end of the month. So the 23rd, they'll start installing that. And 125 feet, I believe, to the hook on it, and that's from the bottom. It's installed in the trench, so you'll probably look like more like 100 feet tall to where the hook is, and the mast on it is as high as 165. So you'll be able to see it from around town, I'm sure.
The tallest thing in town.
I'm looking forward to it. So the micropiles, that's in the next 6 weeks, they'll begin installation of those. May 5th, just this Thursday, we'll have, from 3 to 5, we'll have a special council workshop where we'll go over the architectural designs, renderings, and selected material palettes. And I've seen some previews, imagery of what they're going to be presenting, and it looks really nice. I think it'll be a fun presentation for you to see. Windjammer Park integration plans. So our team that's doing the presentation here will race madly down there to Windjammer Park to the construction office to have the next CAG meeting, the 5th one in that phase from 5:30 to 7:30. So that'll be good for the Citizen Advisory Group to go over some new information on the phasing and moving forward with that. This is, the red line is slowly creeping to the right, but largely the schedule remains the same. There might be some updates the next time around, but for right now, everything seems like it's right on track. And I skipped the financial part of it because we went into it in such depth last time, but everything on that really hasn't changed substantially. I think the one big thing is they closed on the bonds today. And as for public outreach, there's the same slide that I love to show. It's the oakharborcleanwater.org is the website. You can find all these presentations on there. 914-7000. Treatment plant at oakharbor.org. We received a nice message on there recently with some comments about the project, and it was fun to respond back to them. And visit during our drop-in hours. And it isn't April 25th, but it's the 2nd and 4th Monday of each month is when they are from 2 to 4. And that's it.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, Councilman Ollenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Could you go back to the schedule for just a moment, Mr. Stowell, please? You made a comment that the red line is creeping to the right.
Yeah, that's today.
Why is the red line, excuse me, let me back up. What else is creeping to the right is the gray line. As we've started this project, we were looking at mid to late 2017, and we are in mid, possibly late 2000. Thank you. Just blew the mic out. You're not off the hook, Joe. Can you tell me what you, the design team, KBA, our asset managers, what are all of you doing to find ways to keep pushing that gray line to the left?
To complete sooner, is that to keep the things
Well,
on track?
to get it back closer to our original schedule. There are some things that you didn't have control over, Corolla didn't have control of, the contractor didn't have control of. But we always have to keep pushing back on that schedule, and it seems like it keeps floating to the right.
It has somewhat, but you know, the end of 2017 has always been a very aggressive schedule.
That's a good thing.
It is, and that's, you know, we're maintaining that, and we've had other discussions with Hoffman about where things are at today. And that's part of why the GCCM works as well as it does, is that if we didn't go that route, we wouldn't even be starting construction yet, because we're just working on finalizing the drawings. So in some ways, we're ahead of the game by going the route that we did. As far as keeping things on track and from slipping further to the right, that's just a matter of everybody playing well in the sandbox together and making sure that we give them prompt responses and keep track of where things are. And if they have a question about what's going on, or their subcontractor does, we get back to them promptly.
Do you anticipate that that gray line to slide further to the right? Or do you think that that's a realistic?
I think right now it's
schedule?
realistic. I hope that my goal is for it to stay where it's at, if not shorter.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? Any other input? Okay, thank you, Mr. Stoll, and I blew right by our city administrator comments. I'm sorry about that, and
That's all right, Mayor.
upset the apple cart a little bit there, but
That's all right, we went with it.
we'll test you there, Mr. Powers.
Just a couple of quick things that we wanted to bring to council's attention. One is that I think we've talked about this, you have a conflict with your June 21st meeting, which is conflicting with the AWC conference. We've talked to you about rescheduling that. I think we've mentioned to you that we'd like to combine that with your workshop on June 15th. Notice it as a special meeting so that if we need to take action, we can do that. What would be appropriate this evening for you, however, is a motion and a second and a vote to actually cancel the June 21st meeting. So we would gladly accept that from you.
Okay. Councilman Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to cancel the June 21st, 2016 regular city council meeting.
Second.
Motion and second to cancel the June 21st, 2016 regular city council meeting. Any input? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, I guess done.
The only other things I had, Mr. Stowell mentioned the special workshop for this Thursday afternoon, and then we'll make note for you that for the CAG meeting, we did notice that with a notice of possible attendance, so that if one or more of you wanted to actually be there to observe the CAG meeting, you can do that.
Okay.
And that concludes city administrator comments.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of comments. I want to tell you about the artwork, but before I do that, I know that we had a request for another proclamation, which we will do at our second meeting this month. It has to do with Military Appreciation Month. The entire month of May is Military Appreciation Month, and I would hope that those in the city, and especially those in the military watching, as well as those who have served in the military, know that Oak Harbor values its relationship year-long and then some with our military, and we appreciate what you do for us every day. So having said that, we will have a proclamation. I think it's on the 17th. And then I'd like to tell you about the new artwork that is here behind us. This is art provided by Helen Bates. After a career as an educator and school administrator and raising her son and daughter, Helen finally got around to trying her hand at art. The impetus was when she and her husband Ken were sent on assignment to Texas by Boeing. Housed in an apartment with empty gray walls, Helen soon had all the walls covered with large oil paintings. When the couple retired to Whidbey in 1994, Helen began her art studies with the late Joan Brosnahan. Since then, she has studied with Dottie Sanders and now includes watercolors, acrylics, and monotypes in her art. Helen is a member of Whidbey Allied Artists and the Pacific Northwest Art School. Her paintings can be seen in local and juried art shows. So thank you to Helen for providing this art. And with that, that concludes my comments. So I'll turn it to Councilman Campbell. Do you have any comments?
Just a couple. I just tell you that the two committees that I'm on, the Island County Tourism Committee and the Northwest Clean Air Agency, are both very quiet. Things are going well, and we're doing our job. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
No comment. Thank you.
Councilman Olmberg.
No comment, thank you.
Councilperson Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. Wanted to do a shout out to Starbucks, the one in town managed by Aaron Hedrick, for a fantastic job of organizing and cleaning up the lagoon. There was a lot of community support, her own partners, and kids, adults, you name it. I think dogs, they were all down there helping clean up the lagoon, and the pictures, it looks great. And it's nice that a business in town took that on. And the other is a shout out to Help House, which is near and dear to my heart since I've been on the board of directors. But they are receiving the Community Health Hero Award this year by the county from the health department. And it's because since 1977, when they separated from Island Thrift, made it two, they've never had to shut their doors. And so that's quite an accomplishment for helping our community. So that's it, and hope everyone can come to the AWC conference in June.
That's great. Councilor Heisen.
Thank you, Mayor. Council Member Olmberg and I don't know if anybody else was there cleaning up the lagoon on Sunday morning, and it was not the cleanest job, but there were, I think, upwards of 40 volunteers, and we got a lot done. I don't know if she posted before and after pictures. It was pretty astonishing how much a group of people can get done. It was really encouraging. And the Youth Coalition is up to a couple of interesting things. We are presenting a panel at the Oak Harbor Public Library on Tuesday evening, May 31st. It's the Tuesday after the long weekend. And the panel discussion, the topic surrounds parental liability when it comes to underage drug and alcohol use. So from a liability and a law standpoint, it should be really interesting. I've already learned some really interesting things putting it together. Also, the coalition is sponsoring an online parenting class. It's called Parenting Wisely. It is for parents of kids ages 9 and up, geared towards, slightly older children. It's online. You can get it done in about 3-4 hours, and everyone who completes the course will get a $20 Safeway gift card as an incentive. So anyone interested in that, any parents whose teenagers are driving you crazy, call me. I don't have the answer, but the course does. So give me a call, and I will get you all registered for it. And that's all I've got.
Thank you. Counselor Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple quick things. Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, we've got a little bit of time. If you're not aware of that process, it's obviously the collection of a lodging tax that's then dispersed to different entities. That board is made up of 7 people, 1 council member, Dina, I don't know if she's there, or Anna. Online, it has Beth as the chair, but if you guys would update that. If anyone is interested in that, right now we have an opening for a collector. It's comprised of 3 businesses that collect that tax, and then 3 entities that would eventually or have the possibility to receive that tax. And so we do have an opening right now for one of the collector spots. And if someone's interested, there's a process where you can apply online. You could email the mayor's office. What we'll do is the council is required to review that list of the membership list and approve it each year. So we've got some time before that process actually gets a little more formalized. But if you are interested out there, please make sure and email the mayor's office or apply through the online process. And last but not least, at the end of the council member comments, I don't know if anyone is familiar with Flat Stanley. It sounds like a couple of people are. Flat Stanley is a character in a book series, as I understand it. And kids take these elementary students and they email them, or not email them, they can mail them to people around the world. And people take pictures of Flat Stanley, write something about it, they send it back to the kids in the classroom, and then the kids are able to report on where all Flat Stanley has been. It's my understanding that Mr. Riney's intimately familiar with these. So Flat Stanley, yeah, he's been with us, he's been sailing, he's been around the world. One request they actually made, this is a family that used to live here, they're now a military family stationed in Mississippi, and they asked if they could get a picture with the mayor. And I said, well, I think we could do one better if we could take a 60-second recess at the end of council member comments, and if we could just take a shot of Flat Stanley. I know that it would make a little boy's day in Mississippi to have a photo op with the mayor and the council.
We'll take a 60-second break in just a moment.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Wassinger?
Oh, no comments tonight, thank you.
Okay, we'll take that 60-second break right now. You want us out in front?
I guess so.
I love the life jacket. The life jacket.
You sent a couple different costumes.
Oh, man, that really.
I'll call the meeting back to order. Thank you for your patience. We are now at I believe we don't have no public hearings or meetings to discuss. We are at item number 7, ordinances and resolutions, and we have one resolution, 16-17, Scenic Estates Preliminary Plat Extension.
Ray Lindenberg, Associate Planner. I'm going to keep this very brief. What the request is here tonight is to extend the preliminary plat time limit on the Scenic Estates preliminary plat. That's the location of it. It's just off of Scenic Heights Road and in between the highway there, just south of where the bend is at Swantown Avenue. What they're requesting is a one-year extension as allowed by state law. The state law actually trumps what we have in our code on this case. The state allowed up to a 10-year period of time to go through the preliminary plat process and get it to a final plat. So that was set to expire on April 18th of this year. So they are requesting a final 1 year to get them out to be able to finish up their improvements to get to a final plat. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. Otherwise, it should be a pretty straightforward request. Like I said, it's the state law, the RCW, that governs this one.
Okay, council, any questions? No. I guess I should ask the public if there's. For public, let's do that actually first. Anyone from the public would like to comment on this? Mr. Gentry?
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. Mayor, member of council, I'm Brian Gentry with Landed Gentry Homes and Communities. We're a home builder here in the area, and I'm working with Carl and Darlene Craig on trying to help them get this project that was approved back in 2006 to get it completed. And I just want to thank Director Powers and his group for working with us and getting this and moving this forward to try to preserve the land use that was already there, and the efforts that were taken with all the other preliminary plat work that was done with this, back in the last decade. I know certainly other jurisdictions we've worked on within the region, in Mount Vernon and a few other places where there have been subdivisions like this that were approved kind of pre-recession, but weren't built for a variety of reasons, generally for economic reasons, because 2006 was when it was approved. By the time we got all the land use approvals in place, then in 2008, the market really shifted quite dramatically for everyone, and so it was kind of mothballed at that point. So certainly the Craigs are at a point where they want to see it move forward, and we've done quite a few projects together over the years, and so we're helping get the land use piece going again and getting it re-engineered and hopefully providing homes for new Oak Harbor residents. So we're excited to be part of it, and certainly want to be available if there's other questions that staff may not be able to answer. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gentry. Welcome back. We appreciate it. Anyone else? Anyone else from the public? Okay. Councilor Servadius.
Just a question. I don't think it's any conflict of interest, but living on that street, I have no interest in this vote, or it doesn't affect me in any way. Any problem with that, Mrs. Sparza? Okay.
Okay. Any other? Councilor Servadius, you have something else?
If there's no other council member comments, I'm sorry.
Councilor Munns.
How many plats are there of homes they hope to build? Do you know the number?
13 lots.
13 lots?
Yeah.
Okay.
Councilor Heisden.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve Resolution 16-17 as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve Resolution 16-17 as presented. Motion by Eisen, second by Campbell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well, thanks again. That's exciting. Nice to see. We are now on item number 8. 8A is Clean Water Facility, Carollo Engineers. And I see our city engineer's got his blazer back on, and he's back up here. Mr.
Ready to
Soul.
go. Mayor, council members, what I have for you today is going to be very, very similar to what I brought to you at the workshop with some more detail added in. And this is regarding Amendment 14 to Corollo Engineers' contract with the city. So just a summary of amendments. If you don't mind, I'll kind of, on the ones that you've seen at the workshop, I'll breeze through them a little bit quicker, but I think it's important to have them included because it's actually at the council meeting. But the first 5 amendments were the facilities plan and getting that moving forward. 6 through 9 were preliminary design and final design of the outfall. 10 is 10, 11, 12, 13 are actually through 12 are all getting us moving in the right direction of construction. And 13 is kind of the oddball in the room. That's actually programming and hardware integration of the SCADA actually to control the plant. So the amendment is broken into 2 parts. The first part is design work, and we're exhausting the management reserve that we have set aside there. Part 2 is construction, and that's the engineering services during construction. You'll see the ESDC acronym in here a few times. You know how engineers, we love acronyms, but that's what it stands for, is engineering services during construction. So part 1 is the design portion of the amendment, and it's exhausting the management reserve, and includes some work that has been done already, which is evaluating a larger meeting room, redesigning the lab admin building to a single story. That's underway. LEED Silver certification to satisfy our grant through the state. Designing screen walls. They had to redesign some of the screening walls because we changed the layout of the plant and moved the headworks into a different location. That was some time ago. Redesign the north edge of the clean water facilities to take into account moving the odor control to the north side of the plant outside the fence. And Corollo typically marks up subcontractors 5%, but in this particular portion, they only marked it up 1.3 to keep it under the management reserve that we had available, still left available in design. So this is kind of the same information in a slightly different format. That's a list of all the different amendments. And over to the right, you can see we had it broken up into preliminary design and final design, with a total of $7.4 million in design efforts. So this is where the percentages we were talking about last time came into question at the workshop. So this is a list of plants around the area. Lighthouse Point is up in Blaine. Brightwater's one that we're familiar with. That's the one that King County has. Shelton Post Point is up in Bellingham. There's a whole host of them. You can see Picnic Point is another one. That's down in Linwood area. So what we were trying to do is pick a bunch of different plants that represent something similar in the similar region. And for the sake of argument, the red box is around the range that we discussed at the 60% level. So somewhere between $85 and $110 million in construction costs. So the design, and I pulled this straight from the previous page, is the $7.4 million. And if you take that as a percentage of construction costs, you can see all of the other projects we've done that for as well. And the average for them is 11.1%. If you take that range of potential construction costs, the design would be between 6.7 and 8.7%. So we're beneath the average for the region for design. Is everybody on track with me on that one? So we can come back to it later if you'd like. But the point being is that we're ahead of the game and compared to other similar projects. So at the workshop, I was asked to account for things that maybe shouldn't be included in the design work. So I went through all the old contracts and spreadsheets this afternoon, And first off well, the facilities plan is included in there, so maybe we ought to take that out. That's 1.3 million. The community room, the efforts to work on whether or not the community room was included. I found a number in one of the amendments that accounted for that. Community outreach, this is a series of different contracts, and it's efforts by Corollo, Enviro Issues, MWA, and their sub-Screenworks for public outreach. The SCADA control, that's typically something that's done as part of construction, so I pulled that out of there too. Only thing I could find to quantify whether or not the Navy was included. I know there's a bigger number in there somewhere, but the only one I could find in short order was $13,000. Initially, we were going to do the permitting in-house, but we hired that out, and that's $9,000 here nor there, whether it should be in or not. But I just figured I should include it. Training during Amendment 14 includes training for our staff on how to operate the new plant at $100,000, and then the outfall, both the design and engineering services during construction. I pulled those out as well. So all of that pulls about $4.5 million out of the design cost, which leaves us a total remaining, so design plus engineering services during construction, a little over $12 million. And I know that the contracts that are either we already have or are pending, and I'll get into this later in the presentation, is about $6 million. So that puts our design costs a little over $6 million. If you take all these extraneous items out of our contract with Corollo. I had struggled with how to present this. I hope you appreciate what I'm trying to do. So what I'm going to do now is focus in on these numbers here. The bottom one is design cost with all the extraneous stripped out of it, engineering services during construction, and then the combined amount of 12 million. So that one right there is where I'm going to start as design, because that's part one that we're talking about right now, which is finishing up the design work. So there's the number from the previous slide, the 6 million and some change. And going back to these averages, now we're definitely under 7.1 and 5.5%. So if you get back to, the most basic part of it, it only made it look better, because we took out all the other stuff that that may or may not really apply to design. So either way you want to look at it, it looks like very validating against other projects. Corollo's doing just fine. So part two of the amendment is related to construction work, and Amendment 11 covered some of that for the outfall engineering services during construction. And Amendment number 12 was the first part of engineering services during construction of $700,000, and that was to get them started with the work that they're already out there doing through the deep excavation. So Amendment 14, we got a whole load of slides here. These are all the same ones I showed before. The assumptions are 30 months, getting us through October of 2018. We have full-time on staff, resident engineer, somebody to be the clearinghouse for Corollo to simplify things. Supplemental on-site field services, so we're going to have occasional visits by the engineers that actually designed the different functions, structural, mechanical. They're going to all come out because they have to put their stamp of approval on the final plans. The offices services during construction, this is back at Corollo's office where they incorporate all the changes that have come through and develop record drawings for the project and operations and maintenance documentation. We're going to continue the public support process through the end of the project. I think they've been a great asset and help them getting information out about the project. Some consultant support, that's our architect, landscape architect, and the non-process building structural, which is kind of an add-on with the architectural for the admin and maintenance building. And then there's the escalation cost of 3% per year, which we talked about at the workshop. Since it spans multiple years, employees are likely to get a raise, so that's reflected in their proposal. So why have engineering services during construction? First and foremost, the funding we received requires it because we have to have an engineer of record that provides drawings at the end that says it's working like it's supposed to. We need help training our team, and we need somebody here to help us make sure the plant gets built the way they intended for it to. So if you added up the services during construction, and this, there was the 201, I took the amendment out for the 201,000 for engineering services during construction for the outfall because that's a separate animal, right? We're just talking about the treatment plant now. So amendments 12 and 14, if you add those two up, it's roughly $6.3 million in services during construction. This is, this goes back to, this is the same slide I showed before of all the things that you might want to strip out of the project costs, which takes us down. This is the same slide as before, but now we're going to talk about engineering services during construction. Same slide as before, except for I've moved over one to the engineering services during construction. And the percentage, the average on that is, boy, my eyesight's hitting me, 5.3. And so if you look where Corollo's coming in, there's 7.3 to 5.6. I think it's close enough that it's within reason and expected the way things math out on it for me. So now if you take the combination of the two, so how are we doing overall? So same graphic, but now we're looking at the $12 million mark. Same graphic, but now we're moved one over. And the average of those is 16.5%, and we're between 11 and 14% overall with our contract with them. Keep in mind, these are all pulled together with pulling out all the extraneous items that I talked about. If you were to add them back in, it only changes it by 1% or 2%. So with that, I think that the proposal they've provided us with for engineering services during construction and the remainder of the design work that they're shuffling around to get things finished up for us is all reasonable. And that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to take them.
Thank you, Mr. Stoll. Before we take it up here to the council, is there anybody from the public that would like to either get a question answered or provide input? Going once? Twice? Okay, council. Councilors, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 95 of the agenda bill, it says that Corollo Engineers has completed 90% design for the documents, and the next step after the 90% design is for bidding for the construction. Could you give us a timeline for that? When the 90% will be presented to the council and when the bidding and construction will begin?
That's a great question. We're actually reviewing the 90% drawings right now, and our comments, we're going to have them back to Corollo by the end of the week if everything goes the way we hope it will. And then Corollo has said that they need a month to incorporate those comments to make 100% final drawings that are biddable. And then at that point, we'd be able to put the process structures that are part of this design package out to bid. As far as when the estimate comes through, we were looking for July, August time frame to get that finished up. It's going to kind of happen in parallel. I want to have more conversations with the city administrator and the mayor about how we move forward with that and when the date's going to be that we bring it to council.
And I have a follow-up on the milestone on this project, which is on page 96. Milestone on D Foundation Award, April 2016. Process Facility Award, August 2016. commence plant startup and commissioning June 2018, and final completion of the clean water facility in 2018. Mr. Rick Almberg has commented earlier and referred to the project timeline as the gray line pushing forward in later dates. Now, when in the early stages of this project, on page 247, when the city has completed the draft facilities plan and recommends constructing the clean water facility, it says that the project will be completed by the end of 2017, and in some time it became about early part of 2018, and now it's pushing through October 2018. For this design, the city will enter into contract for 32 months. That construction will be completed by October 2018 or probably later. Is there a possibility it will be completed earlier than October 2018?
It is possible, and we're actually getting to a point, I'm going to leave some comments from my friend Kay Adams, who's hiding out in the back room, but in short, once we've got through all the risky stuff, which is doing the archaeological excavation, driving the sheet piles and digging the big hole in the ground and making sure everything's working properly. Once we start going up with concrete, the schedule gets a lot easier to figure out because it's all mechanical at that point. Everything's very structured to fit together like a puzzle. It's the uncertainties that led up to this point that have caused the schedule creep. I'm confident that now that we're going to be coming up out of the ground here soon, that'll be firmed up. And with any luck, we'll work with our contractor to find some other efficiencies to get it done sooner.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stoll.
Okay, anyone else? Councilor Munns?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Stowell, so the workshop that we're having Thursday is 90% design. That's the architect
It is
design of the building, correct?
It's based on the 90% design, but it's strictly talking about the architectural renderings of the facility and the look and feel of what the treatment plant's going to look like from different perspectives around the outside. Some examples of materials they might use. When we decided on concept B, during that resolution, we stated that we'd come back with additional information, and that's what we're doing.
Okay. Follow-up question, Mayor. So we've been somewhat panicky to be sure we don't miss any of our deadlines for our permitting, and now we're looking at October 2018. Does that cause any problems? I mean, to me, that's like, whoa, what happened here? Because we were first just looking at moving it into January or February 2018. I never imagined, till I read the packet, October 2018. So I'm just wondering with the permitting, have they already been extended, or are we going to have to apply for that? I mean, I know the state likes us and we're doing very well and they're with us, but this is a lot further out than I had imagined.
Sean McCone, who drafts the permit for us right now, he's moving on to work for, and I shouldn't say work for, be the representative in King County. But they haven't replaced him yet, so we're still working with him. But he's fully aware of what our schedule is. We send him regular updates. As a matter of fact, as part of our deliverables with our pay requests, it's a copy of the full schedule. The one I've showed earlier is the abbreviated version. The one that we send to him is the one that you need a magnifying glass and a full-size map table to read. So they're fully aware where we're at and comfortable with it, and I think we're moving along at a brisk pace. but not, I don't want to push it so hard that we're making mistakes either.
Okay, I've seen some other projects where all of a sudden we're like, quick, get a meeting in, we need to file for this extension or whatever, and I just, be sure everything's, all right, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? Councilor Servadius.
Thank you. So, Mr. Stowell, design, the terms design and engineering support during construction, would we quantify those as soft costs?
Yes.
So, realizing we're still working with 60% numbers, when we look at construction costs plus those soft costs, is that starting to get us in the ballpark of a total, a complete number?
It is. And we're working on that, a draft version of all those numbers pulled together right now.
Okay. And I won't beat staff up on the timeline either. Similar, though, to the meeting room, you know, by the time you guys kind of realized where it was at, and we saw it that September meeting or whatever when it had been downsized, I think this timeline revelation kind of comes in the same way. We've had hints of things in early 2018, you know, which would be expected if we'd originally said the end of 2017, a couple months is very reasonable. And then all of a sudden now I think it's really, we're realizing between everything we've done and just unforeseeable circumstances, it's going to be mid to tail end possibly. Just let us know, not to beat you guys up, but we'll be rounding the corner in Safeway tomorrow and someone will be like, what? An extra year? So, but I appreciate all you're doing. I really appreciate the amount of information that you condense down, especially visually, to compare those averages to help distill all of that down. Thank you.
Councilor Olmberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Stowell, when we met today, you indicated that you were going to do a handout, like you had that spreadsheet up there. Are we going to get a handout, or is that going to be electronic? I would like to keep a copy of that record and look at it in about 3 months.
Okay. I'll make sure you get a copy. The reason why I didn't get at copies for this is because, quite frankly, I was working on the presentation until about 5:30. So
Fair enough. I appreciate that. And I took up your time and Doug Merriman's and Kathy's time. And it was worthwhile, and it was a good presentation on a lot of items. But one of the things that I really want to emphasize, and this is commentary and not question, is when you look at, just look at the Corolla one right here. Your labor burden included in the Corollo's their direct labor and Corollo's indirect labor. Indirect is about 2 times what the labor is. In addition to that, they have other add-ons. The overhead adds up to in between 187 and 200%, depending on how you're going to factor these things out. And on top of that, they have a 3% escalator, and on top of that, they have 12% fee. And that's a lot of money on a project of contract this size. And so it's not just Corolla, but Hoffman, we just had a change order with them where the fee was 10%, 10+%, and that's related to construction. But the overhead is fairly high too. Same way with KBA. When we go through the KBA thing, it's going to be about 100. One number is 130, but when you put the whole number together there, it's about 185% of labor. And then we have Sean McCone. We have all these layers of experts and good people, good companies doing this. We need to recognize that the longer we push this out, all this overhead keeps piling up. Every day we do that. They're getting paid. They're getting paid a lot of money to be on schedule. And I think the design team has an obligation to look for ways to get this thing back into schedule. And because right now it's about a year out from, call it the aggressive schedule, but that's a good schedule to go with, is aggressive schedule. We need to look ways to push back on that gray line and not and allow it to slip forward. And I think all of us will be watching this thing as we move down the road, because it's all going to translate into the rates for our community. Thank you.
Okay. Other input? So, Mayor Pro Tem?
I have one more on, on the biosolids dryer. This will be purchased from Germany, not a US-made product?
It's kind of a mix. Parts of it will come from Germany and parts of it will be constructed here in the US.
Okay, because I noted on the page 103 that Corolla engineers will be sending representative to review and test it in Germany.
They did, as well as a representative from Hoffman. Harslav is the manufacturer, and their bid came in really low. And so we wanted to be sure it was something that was what we wanted. And they didn't have a whole lot of experience in the US, but they had a lot over in Europe. So their experience here is with like dog food factories. So it's a similar type process, but not the same. So they actually, Harslav actually flew them over to look to make sure as part of the qualification process.
Okay, are you looking for volunteer from council to review that? Off the record.
Councilman Allenberg?
Were you finished, Mr.
Yeah,
Begal?
I'm
Okay,
finished.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mayor. So is the supplier going to fly them back to do the demonstration of their product? Why wouldn't they pay for that trip? Why are we paying for that trip to go over and verify their product?
They did pay for it.
Who didn't-
Harslav paid for Corollo and a member from Corollo and a member from Hoffman to go.
On the selection process, but what about on this final process for verifying that it's functioning properly? We're paying for that.
We are, but that'll largely happen on site.
But
I don't,
Why, like Mr. Begal said, and I read it in here too, there's money in here for them to go to Germany to look at this system again? Maybe I misunderstood what I read. Factory inspection on the equipment.
and I'd have to go back and find where you're seeing, I don't expect them to fly to Germany to look at it.
At our expense.
Well, I don't see why they would need to for that, because it comes over in pieces. There's like a number of containers that come over.
I see some heads nodding out there.
And I wish Brian were here, but he was, his flight didn't get in until 5, and there's no way he was making it through the mess of traffic. Any thoughts, Brett?
Probably paying for their time. I mean, they're still working.
I think they put in, I don't think we're planning on going to Germany.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
No, it wasn't, we do have some money built in for factory testing, but that wasn't where we're going.
Yeah, there's a lot of expensive items that we'll want to validate are functioning properly before they get here, but the way the dryers, I don't know how many pieces, it's 26 plus pieces. So it's more than 26 pieces. And then there's framing for it that's actually constructed here in the US to support it. So I think that's going to be one of those that's tested when it's built, and that's why it was important to go see operating facilities before we selected them.
Okay, so to your knowledge, in this amendment to the contract, it does not include another trip for any of our people. That means Corolla or Hoffman or whatever, going to Germany to do another visit on this equipment.
Not that I'm aware of, but, if there's a good reason to do something where you have to go to a factory test that's out of the country for $1 million piece of equipment to make sure that it shows up correctly, we'll make a judgment call to make sure that it's spent wisely. But what we don't want to have is a piece of equipment show up that's not functioning and then figure out how to deal with the schedule.
I understand that. Yeah, that does make sense. I'm just following up with Mr. Begal. Sounds like he read the same thing that I read when I'm looking at this thing. There is a scheduled visit to Germany on this equipment. We'll let this one go. We won't let the money go. We'll let this conversation stop, okay?
Thanks.
Anyone else? Any other councilman?
Just a small question. I'm not sure how many people in the audience or even council are familiar with LEED and then silver. I've been involved with National Navy League building a LEED gold certified building, but I think it's a big deal, and I don't think people realize what all that means by having a LEED silver building here in Oak Harbor.
Part of the conversation on Thursday, they're going to cover some of the LEED certification, and some of the things we've already satisfied. A lot of them we have. Some of them there's a question mark next to as to, what are we going to do or how are we going to chase this one down, and some of them we haven't met. And we just need to come up with a particular score to either be certified or silver or gold.
Okay, thank you. That's all there.
Other input, other questions? Okay, so what's the recommended action? Councilor Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the City Council authorize the release of management reserve in the amount of $218,427 and authorize the mayor to sign contract amendment number 14 with Corolla Engineers in the amount of $533,431, increasing the total contract amount to $433,496 to $16,772,927.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second that reads exactly like the recommended action on our slide. Any other input? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. So our last item of the evening is item number 8B, Clean Water Facility, KBA Inc. Mr. Stoll.
And I have Dan Williams, and Kay Adams is hiding out back there. I might ask him to come out as well. Recognize that they're here in support of the agenda item. So this, quite frankly, I changed the date on the presentation on this one versus what we talked about at the council workshop. So I might talk a little bit fast through a few of the slides and skip a couple of the bullet points. If there's particular questions, I can take them towards the end, but I'll try to hit the highlights so that it's on the record of what we're proposing. So KBA has been supporting us. We selected them on a competitive basis as to augment the city's staff and help us with the construction of this plant. Brett's a pretty amazing guy, but he can only do so much by himself. So having the support of KBA is pretty important. This contract that we're proposing will also get us through October of 2018, the same as the previously discussed Corolla Engineering Services during construction. Another side note to make sure that I highlight is KBA is actually going to subcontract the testing and special inspections through Geotest, and they went through a selection process to pick Geotest as the preferred company to go with. A lot of times the city does contracts that on our own, but that ends up putting us in the middle of an awkward situation. It's much easier for KBA with their construction management experience to handle that for us. So the scope of services, they'll help us through design and look for value engineering items. With finance, Chris Bailey, I can't talk highly enough about how much she's helped with the project. She's a firecracker, and she takes care of numbers like I've never seen. She will not let a penny slide, and she's helped us a lot with maintaining good records on the project. So during construction, basically there'll be Brett, well, the right arm to the city, really, making sure that all the documentation to support our SRF loans and our bonding, and sorting through which is applicable to which program, making sure that if we can use the grant money first, the free money first, that we're actually submitting for that first. They're going to be doing regular daily inspections on the project weekly, and before too long, we'll be having a monthly report on the project as well. And the weekly ones go out. I think I sent one to the mayor recently so you could have a look at it, and I know Mr. Allenberg is on the distribution list for that. If there's anybody else interested in seeing them, if you want to geek out for a little bit and read some construction stuff and see a couple cool photos, I can send them to you. But really what it does is if there's ever any kind of an issue, that documentation is invaluable. It allows you to go back and do a forensic analysis of what the heck happened. So it's a very valuable resource. So, and this is going back to the inspections that I was talking about, and materials and special inspections. So I added a little bit more information. I lied. I did make some changes on the slides. So this particular one, I added some additional information because it seemed like there was a little bit of confusion in how I presented it at the workshop. So KBA is currently contracted for $805,500 through deep excavation, and the proposed level of effort to get us through October of 2018 is $2.8 million. And so the total contract amount with KBA would be $3.6 million. So that's the lump. It's not a lump sum. It's time and materials, but that would get us through the end of the project. And just a side note, we've worked with KBA on a number of projects. I think I've worked with them at least on 4 myself, and they're always very good at managing their budget, their time, and their staff. An example of that is when I was working down on Pioneer Way. Dave was the resident engineer that was helping us down there. There was some times that they had him working on 2 jobs, but he was actually stationed here at the city. So, we're at the tail end of things. He's there and available, but he's actually working on another job that he could do remotely. So they do a great job of managing their staff and manpower to the benefit of the city. So I have confidence that at the end of the day, we'll come in under this number that we're showing here. And with that, that's in my presentation.
Okay, I'll turn to the public. Any input, any comments? Going once, twice? Okay, council. Councilor Servadius.
Just a brief comment. I was reflecting on a couple of these items, and it just reaffirms how much I appreciate the workshop format that we switched to, I don't know, a year and a half ago, in that we all get a sneak peek at a lot of this information. I know you're going through a lot of it again for the public's benefit. It might be the first time they've seen it. But I also want to comment, I know, we grilled you guys pretty hard in the workshop, but I also reflect on the fact that we expect a lot out of the staff, and our staff gets stretched pretty thin. I mean, you guys are doing all of your normal activities of keeping the city running, and then we've got a monumental construction project going on. So I don't think it's uncommon to bring in outside resources and experts in their field to help get us through this. So I do look forward to getting through some of these costs and getting things back to normal, but that's part of the process of where we're at. So I appreciate all that you all do. I know we don't necessarily tell you that enough. Sometimes you just get all the tough questions. Thank you.
It's Councilor Heisen.
Thank you, Mayor. First, what he said. And second, you said the words "through the end of the project." Does that mean this is the last amendment we will see to this particular?
I wish I had a crystal ball. It gets us through October of 2018, which is the end of the construction of the treatment plant.
Okay.
If we decide to add on other fun stuff at the tail end of the project, that could change how long they're with us.
Okay. But as predicted and or planned, that will cover all of their services through the end of the project unless we change something about the project.
Yes.
Correct, okay.
That's a great way of putting it.
Councilor Campbell?
Thank you. And by the same token, with your efforts to come in before October 2018, that number should go down.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to hear you say that. And oh, by
Yes.
the way, send me that report.
Okay.
Councilor Olmberg?
Thank you. Well, my comments are pretty close to the same as the previous one, so I won't repeat it. However, I would like to know, will Carollo, KBA, and Hoffman review every change order request that comes through? And who gets the final review before it comes to you, Joe?
Brett does.
Okay? And I noticed in the contract that we just went through with Carollo, they have money in there anticipating reviewing 60 change orders. I'm kind of curious, when we have a GCCM process where we're value engineering going through the design, we have a very good engineering firm, Carollo, doing the design, and we have KBA and you guys overlooking this as we go through the design. We're going through the review right now. Is it realistic to anticipate that we would have 60 change orders in there?
It could be a varying scope. It could be of something relatively small that needs to be updated and documented, or it could be something that, as we're going through construction, we say, hey, we could save a couple bucks there, let's change something.
Okay.
You know, I mean, it covers a host of
Yeah,
different
fair
items.
enough. Thank you very much.
Other input? Other, Councilor Heisen?
I move to approve the recommended action as presented.
Second.
So we've got a motion and a second. Motion by Heisen, second by Watsinger to approve the recommended action as presented on the board. Any other input? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And thank you, Mr. Stoll.
Thank you.
Thanks for your hard work and good presentations. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sounds unanimous. Didn't hear any nays.
Baseball came on 10 minutes ago. The Mariners are playing.